Welcome to the How They Did It podcast. We're here with Dr. Christian Poulos, a fellow countryman, another Greek. You guys see it. I'm
Hello.
bringing the Greeks on the podcast here. I'm represented, I'm
Absolutely.
represented.
We got to stick together. That's how it goes.
That's it. That's it. We got to stick together. We're learning. We're learning. Uh, so I actually saw Christian on Instagram. He has fitness business, online fitness business. He's also a medical doctor, not just like a PhD in sports physiology, which a lot of people they have the doctor on top. But you're actually a medical doctor. Your story was interesting right away. That kind of caught me. Like, wait, what? And I went into it a
Yeah.
little more.
Bit
A mutual
unconventional.
friend introduced us. Right? Yeah. And so how did that happen? So how did you go from being a medical doctor to getting into the fitness industry? Was it a combination? Walk me through that story a little bit.
Yeah, so it kind of ties in, to our Greek roots a little bit. So me, long story short, I'm an only child. My parents, I just told you my dad came here when he was 3. My mom came to the States when she was 30. So I feel like in the whole like Eastern European and tight traditional cultures, you grow up, you become a doctor or a lawyer, and that kind of is what success is to that family. So growing up, I was always told like, hey, get a higher education. That is the key to being, successful, doing well for yourself, making a good income in, the land of opportunity. So growing up, I did well in school. I liked the science side of the things. So I realized, hey, I'll probably do something with science. And then eventually realized, hey, I want to become a doctor. I like helping people. I'm interested in health. I feel like this would be intellectually challenging and stimulating for me. And that's kind of like my path from high school into college. Started lifting when I was 13 or 14. So I've always been into fitness. And then I always thought like, oh, there's different medical specialties like orthopedic surgery, physical medicine, and rehabilitation, where you could do some of the fitness side of things, work with athletes, work with people with injuries. So I always thought like that would be my path as I go through. Eventually got into medical school. I started medical school in 2019 and graduated last year. The first 2 years of medical school are like preclinical work. You are just traditional classroom, you're reading in a book. The last 2 years are the clinical years where you're spending a lot of time in the hospital, learning how to apply the things that you actually learned. So it was a little bit different for us because COVID hit in my first 2 years. So I had a lot of free time. I was able to post on social media. I kind of just did my studies independently at home on my own, woke up pretty early, got done by 12 or 1, then got to work on content, got to go on walks, got to exercise. And then as I got through around my 3rd year of school when you're in the hospital, I realized I actually don't really like this. I don't like being in the hospital. I felt like I was kind of like a cog in a system. I felt like medicine was kind of like an extension of corporate America. I'm sure you hear about a lot of things bad about corporate America. You just feel like you're working a 9 to 5, doing the same thing for 40 years. And I felt like that wasn't aligned with who I wanted to be and who I was at the time. So around that time, I started doing online coaching. I had done in-person training in the past. I was on the powerlifting team. I went to Indiana University at school, did some training there, did some in-person training, and then I built an audience. People were always asking me like, hey, do you do workout plans? Do you do nutrition plans? So I just started doing that online. Eventually realized, hey, I like being a business owner. I like answering to myself, doing my own things. So around my 4th year of medical school was when I scheduled a lot of electives, a lot of easy ones that I could do online or that were pretty hands off. So I really dove into my business, worked on getting more clients, hired some staff, some employees that helped me, run things in the back end. And then I realized, hey, maybe there's more to this. I think I could have more time freedom, more flexibility, help more people, make more money, doing my own thing and building my own things and only answering myself. So got towards the end of med school, did not apply to residency to continue with the path of being a traditional doctor practicing. And now I do my online fitness coaching business. I have some other projects in the healthcare space that I'm working on the side that, I feel like would make healthcare, and the delivery of it a better place for most people. So that's kind of the branch that my life took, I guess, in the last couple of years. It was quite the transition.
Yeah, that's a crazy story. That's crazy. And I have a question. So when you got into the online business, so you had done in-person training for a while. Did you enjoy in-person training?
I did enjoy in-person training just because it's super cliche and corny, but fitness changed my life. I felt more confident. I felt more secure with myself. The work ethic, the discipline of going to the gym consistently, being on track with the diet, it translates into other areas of life. Helped me in medicine, helped me stay disciplined. And I was seeing those benefits and I wanted, other people to get those benefits too, especially people close to me, a lot of friends that I trained, were seeing those benefits. But the issue with in-person training was you are capped. You could only, there's 24 hours in the day, how many people can you train, and have time for yourself. So online made it a lot easier to connect with people, that weren't in my vicinity, could train people a lot farther away and still kind of take care of like, training, nutrition, and accountability. Because a lot of times when you're in person, sometimes you don't get the same nutrition or accountability that you get if you're, doing everything all online. So I was happy to kind of take care of everything. And, I'm a homebody. I like sitting on my computer here. I have a nice little setup, I like to think.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was kind of in line with what I wanted to do and how I wanted to be in the future.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. When you started building an audience, was there an intention behind it? Where you're like, okay, I'm trying to build an audience to build a business, or was it just like, oh, I'm going to post this out there and see what happens?
It was literally just post it and see what happens. It actually started, I started posting in 2018. It was my senior year of college. I had done a lot of like the prerequisites in high school, tested out some classes. So my senior year was pretty relaxed. My wife, Abby, and I, we went to two different colleges 2 hours away from each other. And I remember I only had one mandatory in-person class on Wednesday. So sometimes I would literally drive Wednesday evening to her, visit her until Wednesday morning, and then drive back for my class. So I had a lot of free time, and we were seeing people like posting, swipe workouts, a lot of random BS that made no sense. And I felt like, I had been lifting for, 7, 8 years at the time. I was like, oh, why don't I post workouts? I think I look decent. I have, decent knowledge. Might as well post some things. I enjoyed it. In the past, I always made Call of Duty and RuneScape montages. So content creation in a certain sense was something I was always interested
Yeah.
in. And now I just kind of applied it to, actually showing my face and doing things in person. So just ended up, growing a little bit, time after time, year after year, and then, ended up being, what it is now.
Yeah. Did you find the struggle from being the content creator and then you started getting clients, figuring out that back end as clients were coming in? Was there like a period of like a bit like, oh man, how exactly am I going to do this? Like, how am I going to have the plans? How's it going to be formatted? Or were you already very like educated on were you technologically literate? That's a good word to put.
I was decently technologically literate. It was more so just like tailoring the content in a certain way. So, before I was just posting workouts, anyone could be interested in a workout. A 14-year-old kid in Bangladesh could be interested in a workout. Same way a, 50-year-old executive in the United States could be interested in a workout. So a lot of it was kind of figuring out how do I tailor my content in a way that, draws in my ideal client. And so that was kind of like something that I had to learn over the last couple of years. But I realized a lot of it is just being authentically you. And I feel like people are drawn to you as a person, and then that will make them more likely to want to be coached by you. So in the last year, I've kind of developed things in a way that, I just post things that I like to post that I think are relevant to me. And then, I want people to like me for me instead of just, a random workout that they think I look good in. So that's kind of like the shift I've had. And it did take some time to get used to that, content structure. But, the process and delivery of like scheduling things, I always like to think I was pretty organized. So it kind of worked well for me, on that aspect of things. And, I'm happy to, wake up every single day and enjoy what I do. And I definitely didn't when I was in medical school.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine how difficult it is in the hospitals and stuff as well. Just from like just an actual grind perspective, and the being in the with all the people that are struggling, and it's a lot of hours. It's very hard work, very high pressure. I mean, I can
Yeah.
imagine.
Exactly. You know how it goes. And it's like, I feel like we're all, in the end chasing like fulfillment and happiness. And, when you're not fulfilled doing something, like you have to pivot and find a way out. So I'm very thankful that I did and, found something that works for me and, allows me to live the lifestyle I like to live.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm just have my notes up on my laptop as well, and yeah, I was thinking that when I started personal training, my first entry into the business was it came from a different direction, right? I didn't come from a medical background. It actually came the complete opposite, right? So I was obese growing up as a kid.
Yeah. I remember seeing the pics.
Yeah, I was at 265 pounds, 16. Uh, I was feeling like at that point I realized, oh, what I want to do is become a professional mixed martial artist. Or at the time, there was like between professional mixed martial arts, and professional wrestling. Not like I picked any easy outcome of it, right? So it was cool. I was like, I'm gonna do this. I was obese. I was like 16, 17. I'm like, I'm gonna go for it. And I kind of learned on the way. So I just kind of like jumped into that process of losing weight and trying to figure this out. I'm trying to become an athlete. I actually ended up making it to the UFC, and in the process of doing that, I kept educating myself as much as I possibly could to be able to do it for myself. And slowly, somehow, I started getting clients here, there. Do something for a little extra money. I'll teach a class. I'd have a professional athlete. And I got into the medical side of things once I started having enough clients. No, the scientific approach of training. Once I had enough clients, I was like, I actually need to stop and figure out, like, do I know what the fuck I'm doing here? Like, I need to make sure, right? Like, am I making any mistakes? So it's funny hearing you come from the complete other, from the full science side. I came from the full other side to
Yeah,
come to the
exactly. It is quite
destination.
like a 180. And I feel like, both fitness and business are like the ultimate forms of self-improvement. Like you coming from, 260 pounds where you were, you did a complete 180, wanted to be a badass, wanted to learn how to fight, take care of your body, be in better health. That's, self-improvement on every single level. You saw a problem, you put something into place to fix it. And I feel like a lot of business is the same, especially coaching. You see a problem with a certain client, you put things into place, you fix it. An extension of self-improvement. Even with like a business, you see like, certain things not working the way that they should, you put something different, a new system into place, see how it goes, improvise, adapt, and constantly like are improving. So I feel like this is kind of like an extension of our personalities. And I always like to say, like, there's no reason why someone who is very in shape or very disciplined with their health can't be good, a good business owner. Because you have a lot of the discipline, and a lot of it is like that mindset of, sticking through something while it sucks. In a fat loss or a muscle gain journey, you may not see those results for a long time, but you're still sticking to it. And I feel like business is a lot of the same thing. So, I feel like we're kind of aligned.
Yeah, 100%. All right, guys, we got cut off there really quick. I'm gonna edit that out. We'll hopefully make it work. But yeah, where we had left off is, yes, I agree with you 100%. I do believe that business and fitness have so many similarities, so many commonalities. Uh, I see it even now when I've started. So I just entered to the online fitness space. I've owned my own business before. I own my own personal training gym. I've been a part owner of my own jiu-jitsu gym. I've been a part owner of my own MMA program, and I've run my service business, which is more of a service than a business, where I train clients and travel them what I'm doing at the moment. And I started doing my online business, and I remember when I first started, I was getting those immediate hits of like, oh, I'm not seeing results. Oh, how am I going to do this? What am I doing this right or this wrong? And I kind of took the approach of like, okay, this is just like a muscle gain journey. Like, I'm not going to see much going on here. I just need to constantly put in the effort. And if I recognize a pattern here and there as it goes, make some auto corrections and keep moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like a lot of it, I've realized, especially being in the online space, a lot of it is just being a mindset coach almost. Like dealing like with managing proper expectations, like what is the proper rate of progress, dealing with like setbacks and things like that when like a random weekend happens or you're traveling. That's like one of the biggest things that throws people off and kind of ruins that pattern of consistency. So I've realized a lot of what I do is more actually just like, handling people's mindsets and making them the mindset of like, I like to say like a fit person. What does someone who is fit, what's in their fridge? Where are they parking their car? What are they ordering at a restaurant? I feel like a lot of it is just getting someone to be into that. So a lot of it really is kind of a mindset, training in the background too. So I definitely resonate with that.
Oh yeah, and I have a question. So here's a couple things I've run into in the online space that is a bit different for me. So when you're doing like nutrition consultations, like how are you able to keep people on track and show accountability? What methods do you use to keep people accountable? Because in person, I feel like there's a level of like when you're going to come and see me, let's say I'm training you 3 times a week. And you're going to see me on Monday, on Wednesday, and on Friday. And every time you have to come to me and kind of look me in the eye and be like,
Yeah.
it's that level of uncomfort is sometimes enough to push people to doing it. Well, online, it's a little bit different. Like
Yeah.
there's that level of distance, a level of separation. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's very easy because you could hide behind a screen. You get hater comments. They're just hiding behind a screen. I could literally hang up from this conversation and never talk to you again. It's very easy to kind of have that disconnect. But a lot of it is just, people generally sign up with you because they know you, they like you, and they trust you. So that's already like, an added layer of incentive for them to stay on track. Obviously, they're paying for it. Oftentimes like a monetary investment, makes them more invested. But really, it is just managing expectations, as I kind of mentioned. So the way I do my nutrition plans, there's really a spectrum. On one spectrum, some people like, eat this for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack every single day. They like that. If they waver from it, we'll adjust things, make sure the meals fit in a little bit better with their lifestyle. Some people are a little bit more advanced, or they want to track macros, so they have more flexibility of piecing things in. I'm always overseeing that, making sure things are kind of aligned with their overall, calorie and macro goal. And it kind of depends on the person. Some people do well by taking a picture of everything they eat, just sending me it in a chat, just so I could see what they're doing. I could give them feedback based on that. But a lot of it is just learning how to, I'll backtrack a second. I feel like people are generally okay for the most part from, Sunday evening until Friday morning. They're just going through like a general routine. And I feel like when you're in a routine, it's easier to fit those things in because it's consistent. A lot of times people fall off track on the weekends. So it's kind of more so like, teaching a budgeting method. Think about it, instead of 2,000 calories a day, think about it as 14,000 calories over the week. Some days you may go a little bit over, maybe the next day, go on a little bit of a longer walk. You'll burn an extra 100, 200 calories to offset, a Saturday night dinner out. So a lot of it is just kind of planning ahead and making sure that you just kind of have some routine and structure. Structure is one of the big things that I kind of beat in, and even structure in like the bigger sense of like, December. What challenges do you face in December? Time with family, time spent around food. Make a plan for that, the beginning of December. Don't come December 24th and think like, oh, snap, I'm just going to eat all this and then, I'm going to fall off track and start January 1st. So it is just proper expectations, proper planning. And I think that is kind of like, and adjusting things, for specific people because everyone is different.
I think that's huge. I think that's so huge. Like I've realized I feel one reason I resonate with some people well is because I've been there like very much, and I'm there even to this day. I don't consider myself somebody that's like. It takes a lot of effort for me to be disciplined. Like for me to go off course is easy. I have to constantly rail myself back
Yeah.
into
Right.
be somewhat in shape. Like people have always been like, "Oh man, yeah, you do it. Look at you, got down to like 8% body fat in like 7 weeks." I had a bet. That's how I started this. So I had a bet to get down as low as I could. My boss bet
That's
me that
helpful.
I couldn't get down, and I'm like, all right, let's do it. Like and like, oh, you see, yeah, you're disciplined. I'm like, that discipline actually is easy. To be honest, like it sucks for 7 weeks or 8 weeks. So if I know, or 10 weeks or 12 weeks, even if I know it's 12 week of suck, it's
Yeah.
that timeline in your head. The problem is after the 12 weeks, what happens? It's that rebound, and that's why I think most people make the mistake. And what I try to teach people is, don't plan for the 12 weeks. Instead, let's plan for the year. Like let's
Yeah.
plan this year out. How are we going to do this realistically? To where the fact that you are going to go have your Christmas dinner with your mom and dad, and you want to enjoy it. Maybe have a couple glasses of wine, go have some beers with your friends afterwards. And you should. Like this life, you're only in life once. But
Right.
how are we going to do this to not completely throw us off the rails for the next 3 weeks and then have to start from day one, from the beginning? I
Exactly.
think that's huge.
Yeah, and it is like that's why I push like a really big sustainable approach. If you can't do it for, the rest of your life, there's no reason why you should do it for 8 or 12 weeks for the period of a cut. Granted, a weight cut for like a competition or something is
Yes.
different, that you're not going to be doing that forever. But that's why it's like, the sustainable diet is always like the biggest thing. And, I always ask like, do you want a quick fix? Do you want to lose this 20 pounds very quickly and look good for, a week or two in the summer? Or do you want to make this like a whole lifestyle change? And I think the big lifestyle change is learning to fit in those beers, learning to fit in like the glass of wine on occasion. Because, for me, life is about experiences. Those things are experiences. You should have those things. And it's about, structuring everything else around it, cutting the fat of the things that aren't important to you, and really maximizing the things that are important to you. And generally, for most people, it is, maintaining good relationships, being in good health, being able to move, and just managing your lifestyle and expectations properly. So I'm very much on the same page.
Yeah, I one thing I do with new clients is I try to get them to like truly clarify to me what it is they want. And sometimes like, there's the cookie cutter response. It's like, oh, I want to get lean, I want to have abs by the summer, and I'm like, is that really what you want? Like, why do you want abs by the summer? They'll kind of blank for a second. I'm like, listen, if you don't truly know what you want, why? Because yes, if you want abs by the summer and you're like, I want abs by the summer because I need the social approval by ABC, and that
Exactly.
is so important to me, it's driving me, then I know that, hey, even if I don't think that that's probably the best, healthiest reason to do it, but if that's what you want to do, then I know your driving force. I know what it is. I'm going to tell you, hey, if that matters, then this is what you're going to have to give up to have that. Does it really matter for you? Because it might
Exactly.
not, right?
Yeah.
And
And that is one thing I talked about. I have actually a few business coaching clients. I actually talked this exact same thing this morning with one of them. And it's about like different levels of pains. So, level one pain is, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds because I want to look good. I want to look good on the beach. Level two of that is I want to look good so I can attract, the opposite sex and have people interested in me. That's a little bit of a deeper pain. And then really what you want to get to is like a level three. I want to look good so I could attract the opposite sex because my ex-girlfriend left me and she called me fat. That's like a deep pain. People are going to want to change from that. And so generally I want to find clients who have this deep pain that's going to make them more accountable, more likely to stay on track. And I just feel like those are the people that generally want the help and need it and will actually stick to it. So that is kind of like a level that I like to get with people just to make sure, like, kind of like how you mentioned, like, is this worth it to you? Do you actually want this? And people tend to be more successful as a result of that.
yeah, and I think that, like, I've actually had clients that have told me in the past, like, they came to me like, I want a six pack. And then after, like, really getting down to the nitty gritty of it, like, I really don't want a six pack. I just kind of want to fit in my jeans a little bit better. I want to not feel uncomfortable taking off my shirt. That's really what I want. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's actually a different level. So it's great to know that because we don't have to go, like, super hard and cut your calories down and be overly strict and make your life miserable for the next 3 months. While instead we can take a much more slower, sustainable approach now because what your goal, what you're trying to reach, is much more attainable. And now you can enjoy it, feel strong, not have all those crash diet negative feels that you
Exactly.
get.
Yeah, and that's like the life journey. You go through something, you commit to it, you realize maybe it's not for you, and you pivot. Kind of like how I did with medical school. Fitness and health are closely related. I still try to tie in both aspects into what I offer. But I was in medical school, didn't like it. I was like literally tearing up in the bathroom in the morning before, my rotation started. And then I pivoted, did something else. And in the same way of, maybe realizing you don't want a six pack, you just want to be lean, you have other goals as you kind of go along the way. You pivot into something else and you take everything you've learned and you apply it into a new goal. I think that is like a big part of like, the life journey and life experience. I always talk about the life experience, and I think a lot of it is just, having good experiences, experiencing a lot of different things. So I definitely think that, is valid too.
That's great. So here I'm gonna shoot in some questions that are interesting to me because we are in the same business. You're someone that I really really enjoy your content as well, and you're a cool guy. But outside of that, I enjoyed your content from just a unbiased opinion. I think it's great. Give me some of some of the things you've learned from the business aspect of training people, like important, like how do you like did you learn about like lead generation, how to monetize your audience, how are all these actual business side of things? What did you learn in this process? How did you change? What do you do differently now than you did before?
This is a good question. So I think a lot of it, one thing I have learned and have been focusing on recently is just kind of applying and changing yourself and your offer based on the times, which I'll get to in a second. But second, it kind of ties into both of our businesses too. Like your ideal client and the ideal person that you work with is who you were, say a few years ago. So for you, it was someone who's overweight, someone who may be interested in getting into UFC or some sort of fighting endeavor. For me, it's someone who literally had no time for anything, was very busy, might be working in healthcare, some sort of white collar job. So, tailoring things to what you have experience with. I don't take clients that I don't think I can help or I don't feel like I understand their lifestyle properly. It's going to create a bad experience for both of us, add more time on my plate, have them investing something that won't get them results. So, I think tailoring your business into, who you are and who you were is helpful. And then also keeping up with the times. So, popular now is, the carnivore diet. Gary Brecka, who does like blood testing and things like that and tailors his approach into that. So I think I have that kind of avenue and knowledge where I try to do some of those things in my program now too. Offer like blood testing, actually managing your cholesterol levels. Like I want to be the doctor that you see before you have to see your doctor for an actual issue. So that's kind of like
Yeah.
how I tailor things, and you kind of learn things as you go. What resonates with you as a person. And I feel like for proper fulfillment and sustainability in like your career and what you're doing, things have to resonate with you. That's why a lot of my friends who are in the corporate 9 to 5, those things don't resonate with them. So they're trying to build a side hustle and do other things. And I feel like that is kind of like, the bigger overarching purpose of what resonates with me. Even if it's not necessarily like, the biggest, most profitable business idea that's going to make 100 million in a year or something like that. it'll be more
Yeah.
sustainable for you. You'll enjoy it more, and you'll be able to provide more value to your clients if you just find something that resonates for you. And if it resonates to you, odds are someone else is going to be interested in it too. So that's kind of like the life philosophy I've kind of applied, as I've gone through.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. And when it comes to like the actual back end of the business side of things, like when did you start hiring people? When did you first get like a certain amount of clients and realize, like, oh, this is going to become a bit hectic for just me, or did you preemptively hire the people thinking like, okay, this is going to grow. I'm going to be ready for this.
Yeah, so I hired a team right from the beginning, mostly just to teach me how to do this and how to deliver it properly and efficiently kind of in the back end. So, they'd help me with like logos, ideas and things like that, how to like, generate more business. And then as I kind of learned that, research more on my own, they kind of manage more so of like the nitty-gritty of, you know, building programs based on like the things that I say, just because it is kind of tedious pulling in exercises and things like that versus me just saying,
Yeah,
hey, do this. And then I, give the check mark, overview it, or, swap just a couple things myself.
yeah,
Sometimes times and things like that are difficult to deal with if you have like, 300 people replying to something. There was one point where I was, literally messaging for 8 hours a day. So now, sometimes people help me with like, the DM side of things, which I think is important. And then, just kind of like building a lot of things in the back end. So I build a lot of like, free lead magnets and things like that, like free routines. I'm sure you see me post about those.
yeah.
I can't make it look nice as someone who's, trained in this to do it. So, I build it, they make it look nice, kind of build like the link behind it. So it's like, dished out properly, managed properly. So it's really like, I want to get to the point where I like step away from the business. I have like coaches under me working, managing everything, and I'm like, the CEO overseeing, working on the business rather than in the business. And that is kind of like the ultimate goal, eventually later down the line when I expand more. So like, bring like more of a medical offer into my program too.
Yeah, I'm very similar in that regard. I want to do the same thing. My goal is that, and I would love to oversee other coaches, and especially young coaches that are maybe struggling and come from places like Greece, where the some trainers are making like $10 an hour to like
Yeah.
to do a client, and they're barely scraping by. And I want to have a process where I'm like, listen, guys, let me help you guys. These are excellent coaches. There's nothing wrong with their skill set. They're personable. They're great. It just the economies of the country is a struggle, and I want to build something that I can also go to them and be like, hey, you got a PhD in nutrition. You should be doing more. Like, let's do it. Let's do this together. Like, let me get this thing I built. Let me give you a platform and let you help these people, probably even better than what I can help them, because you can singularly focus on these 10 people, and I'm gonna have 10 of you doing it. We got 100 of these people with the best,
Exactly.
quality instruction they can.
Exactly. And like, we're in a good position where we have that opportunity. And I think like, if you help a few people, they can help, hundreds of people on their own. And then it's like, that's fulfilling for me. So, that's a big reason why I started this in the first place. So, eventually getting to that point, I'll be able to make people healthier than, seeing, 20 patients a day if I were a doctor. So that is kind of like, the exact mindset I've had and, a big reason why I've pivoted, and have this kind of mindset moving forward too.
That's fantastic. So I'm going to get into one more thing before we close it up here. I'm going to say one thing is I see that you're leaning out right now, right? You're in a bit of a diet ish. I see getting the abs coming out, obviously on
Something like that.
Instagram. Yeah. What's the how do they call it? What's the plan here? What's your current routine? What's your goal for fitness wise?
So I'm trying to like I've been bashing into your brain over the last like 30 minutes, just something sustainable for myself. Yesterday, my wife Abby made a pie. I did have some pie yesterday. It was like a nice chocolate pie with Oreo sprinkled on top. So really, I try to focus more on like macros. Stick to my 2,000 calories a day for the most part, or 14,000 calories for the week, as I mentioned. Some days I'll go a little over, some days I'll go a little under. But I like to be more active. So I've always noticed in the past the happiest times in my life are when I get 15 to 20,000 steps a day. I don't know why. Is it the sunshine? Is it just being outside that makes me feel better? So now I go on an hour walk every single day in the afternoon, walk my dogs, listen to an audiobook. So I easily get, 10, 15,000 steps a day. And that is where a lot of my like calorie burn comes. And then I just try to supplement that with my diet. Generally like 90% whole unprocessed foods, meat and veggies for the most part. I try to fast in the morning. I try to work until I get really hungry and then I just eat, whether it is, 11 a.m., noon, sometimes 1 or even 10. So that is kind of like a way of offsetting eating a little later because they're like, big meals, our parents forced us to, finish our plate growing up, that's how it was. So that is like generally my structure. But, I won't stress out if we have like a weekend trip or this past weekend, my parents are visiting. We went out to dinner. I enjoyed myself. I think, I'd rather take it a little bit slower and enjoy it along the way rather than be super dialed in because I'm not going to step on a stage anytime soon. I'm not looking to do that. So it's not really like a deadline for me. It's more so just about making it sustainable and enjoying all the like little life experiences, but managing, the expectations behind it. And that's why, I try to maintain the high step count overall, be pretty active, and that helps me with that. Maybe I should get into MMA, maybe that'll help me out with, burning some calories too.
You definitely burn some calories. If you do that, you'll definitely burn some calories. To be honest, actually, I've seen. I actually have a client now that I'm dealing with that he trains insane amounts, crazy, but he's so hungry after these really intense training sessions that his ability to control his food intake, even though what he's eating are quality calories, but they're still he'll just go so hard and he struggles to lose weight because he's putting in such an enormous amount of work. And it's like this mindset shift. That's what I'm like. It's the problem is you're putting in so much, you're getting your body so hungry, you can't outwork the diet. Like, so you're gonna have to somehow either pull back a bit on the training, or you're gonna have to really go for like low calorie, high volume options for almost all your options to be able to sustain you without feeling like
Yeah.
ravishing like the whole world.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been like that too. And I think like focusing on the high volume stuff is key. But I do have some clients myself that they've coming from a point where they feel like they need to work out for 2 hours, like do 40 sets of chest just because they need to feel like they did something. But
Yeah.
you come back from the gym, you're making a meal, and while you're making the meal, you eat some leftovers just because you're so hungry, you're feeling lightheaded and low blood sugar. I've done it myself. I know how it goes. I know it's a thing.
You know
So
what I'm saying?
I think that is, another way of like kind of managing expectations and, just being science based and, realistic with people.
I agree. Hey, Christian, I really appreciate you coming on, man. We had some technical difficulties here. We had scheduling
You're all good.
difficulties. We made it work somehow.
Yeah,
Through thick and thin. I really appreciate you've been a good sport through the whole thing. Uh, I'm gonna have the link of your Instagram for people to go follow you. He's a fantastic follow. He gives great advice, science based advice, and he's not yelling at you at the cameras. It's enjoyable. So keep
not yet at least.
yeah, not yet. That's for the next. That's when you really need to
That'll be
drive
the
up
next.
the
Yeah,
engagement. That's when you need to really drive up the engagement.
yeah, engagement bait with anger. That's how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate it. I'm
Absolutely.
learning as well from you, watching you do it. So thank you so much, and we appreciate you for the How You Did It podcast. Thank you.
Awesome, Tony. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to doing the next one. Definitely open to it and diving into these topics deeper.
Let's do it.